Well, good afternoon, welcome, and thank you for joining us for this quarter's data and performance management meeting. If you haven't already done so, please enter your name and your agency name into the chat for attendance. So to keep our questions organized, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. We request that you keep questions general and related to the topics. If you have specific questions regarding report outcomes or other agency-related questions, please submit a help desk ticket so we may further investigate and provide assistance. So today we'll be covering the project performance report schedule, the permanent supportive housing, other permanent housing, rapid rehousing, and transitional housing PPRs, the quarterly data quality report cards, the quarterly COC dashboard. We'll review the new process to calculate Goal 5, and we'll facilitate a discussion on agency contact sharing for better care coordination. All meeting materials and recordings will be available on the OCH MIS website after this webinar. So this is the publishing schedule for project performance reports, which are published twice a year for each project type. The schedule can also be found in the project performance overview document, which we will link in the chat. The project performance reports include all reports that participate in HMIS and highlight different measures that the HUD and the COC have determined are important in effectively ending homelessness for Orange County clients. The project performance overview document, which we just will link, provides detailed information on the goals and schedule for publication. So this can be found on our website under the Reports tab or in the materials available after this meeting as well. So for this quarter, we're highlighting recently published permanent supportive housing, other permanent housing, rapid rehousing, and transitional housing project types. So we'll start with the PSH OPH PPR. Andrew?
Yeah, hey everyone. In these next few slides, I'm going to be going over the permanent supportive housing and other permanent housing project performance reports that were recently published. And for our most recent published report, our COC met 3 out of 11 of our thresholds for PSH and other permanent housing. And this slide shows our numbers for goals 1 through 10. So most of the numbers and data for these goals have been fairly consistent over the past 2 years. We did not meet the threshold for goals 1, 6, 7, and 10. Those are going to be highlighted in the pink color. But we did meet the threshold for goals 4, 5, and 9. And goal 4 is one of those goals that I'm actually going to be taking a closer look at in another slide because we are meeting this threshold now. We saw a significant improvement in this most recent published report compared to previous reporting periods. So that's a goal that we're now meeting our threshold for. And for the other goals, performance has remained fairly consistent over the past 2 years. We're kind of, you know, running into the same goals where we're meeting the threshold and the same goals where we're not meeting the threshold. But that's what I wanted to share for these goals. And in the next slide, we have some of the CES goals. So for these goals, 11 through 14, these are kind of unique to permanent housing and other permanent housing projects. These are goals that are specifically related to CES data. So we have goal 11, that's looking at referrals from coordinated entry system, goal 12, that's looking at the whether or not those referrals were denied by housing providers. Goal 13, how fast are the matches being accepted through CES? And goal 14, out of those matches, how many are successfully matched to the housing provider? And unfortunately, we're not meeting the thresholds for any of the CES goals as of this most recent reporting period. We're seeing some fairly consistent performance across the board for PSH and OPH projects for the CES goals. Um, so yeah, fairly consistent performance for these thresholds. And then, yeah, the one goal that I did want to highlight, and I just realized there's a typo on the title. It's actually a goal 4 for permanent supportive housing and other permanent housing, which is placing households in units as soon as possible. So this is looking at the gap between the enrollment date for a permanent housing project and the housing move-in date that's recorded in that enrollment. And what we like to see is that there is a very little gap between those two dates. Our COC threshold is less than 30 days. And we've historically been around that 30-day gap between enrollment and housing move-in dates. But this reporting period, we actually had a significant decrease in the gap between those two dates, where we had a project type score of 6 days, which is a significant improvement compared to previous reporting periods. And the chart on the left kind of shows you a closer breakdown of the length of days to permanent housing placement. So as we can see, most households are being enrolled or moved in within 30 days of enrollment. And we see similar data across the different subpopulations as well. So chronically homeless households, households with children, households without children are all seeing similar levels of project performance for this goal. And I also wanted to sort of provide another chart on the right, which is showing just a monthly average of the days between move-in and project start. So as we can see on the chart, in a couple years ago, in January 2022, we had very significant gap between um, when households were moving in and when they were enrolled. And this could, be caused by a number of things. It could be the literal amount of time between when they're moving in and when they're first engaged in the by the housing provider. But there's also a chance for it to be caused by, data entry issues and data quality. So we can see that over time we've seen a steady decrease in that gap, and our most recent reporting period, we have seen very little days between the housing move-in dates and the project start date. So that's just something that I want to bring up to the community and inform everyone that we are doing significantly better in this goal compared to other reporting periods. That's kind of all I wanted to highlight about goal 4, but if you do have any questions or you want to discuss goal 4 further, feel free to leave it in the chat. But that's kind of all I had for this slide.
Thank you, Andrew. We'll pause for questions here. If you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself or enter your question in the Q&A box. Okay, I don't think I'm seeing anything.
There was one
Oh,
question
was
I
there? Hold
saw.
on. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed it.
Uh, I
Feel
got it.
free.
So
Yeah.
it looks like Elizabeth asked, do we know why there's a significant decrease? So um, based on our deeper dive of what we saw in the data, we saw kind of across the board, multiple housing providers were decreasing the amount of time between move-in dates and enrollment start dates. Um, as to specifically how that occurred, it's most likely a combination of data quality, getting better at sort of timely data entry and enrolling the housing move, entering the housing move-in dates as accurately as possible. Um, but also if there's any other, housing providers on the call or anyone who's running a permanent supportive housing project or permanent housing project in HMIS, feel free to share some insights as to, you know, why we were seeing such a decrease. But based on what I've seen, it's sort of multiple different housing providers are getting better at data quality and also just getting better at enrolling the or moving in the household shortly after the initial enrollment dates.
So the question in the Q&A is, were there any policy changes by the county that led to the decrease? Erin, if you're on the call, could you support with this?
Um, I can't think of any policy changes that are new. We we have had COC funded agencies focusing on their performance, correcting data to have the most accurate data possible for their NOFA review. So that could have had an impact, just more data cleanup and corrections, but I don't think there's been any um, policy changes that have contributed.
Yeah, thank you, Erin. Just reaching out. If there are any other questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or add them in Q&A. Oh, another question. Has there been a greater focus on that this year as opposed to previous years?
I would say it's always something that we encourage and we give the opportunity to the agencies to review and correct. I do feel like there has been more focus on it by the agencies, probably because of the competition has become more competitive and oh, I guess maybe the there's been a change in policy around for COC funded projects that they could be reallocated if their score is under a certain their total score for all their projects is under a certain percentage. So that change in policy could have an impact with agencies putting more focus on their data cleanup.
Great. Thank you very much, Erin. Okay, unless there aren't any other questions, I will go ahead and move on. The next project type we're reviewing is rapid rehousing. So this is our most recent report for the reporting period of March 2024 through February of 2025. And our COC met 4 out of the 10 goals, met being the blue and unmet being the pink. So those that we met were goal 6, which is help adults increase their income while enrolled in the project. And that COC current threshold is at greater than or equal to 40%, and we've exceeded that to 54%. Goal 10, which is ensure clients do not fall back into homelessness after being housed. So our threshold is at or below 7%, and we've dropped from the previous reporting period to 4%. And then with the coordinated entry goals for goal 12, which is limit the referrals from coordinated entry system that are denied by housing providers. That dropped significantly, a 13% drop to 23%. And then goal 13, which is accept matches from coordinated entry system less than or equal to 14 days. And we've held steady from last reporting period at 14 days. So for this project type, we wanted to highlight goal 12 as a success since it's experienced a 13% decrease from the last reporting period. So again, the goal is to limit the number of referrals that are denied by housing providers. And decreases were seen across all subpopulations, as you can kind of see at this line chart to the right. But the line I want to point out mostly is the household with children score, which is this yellow line. And that had the most significant change. It went from a high of 68% in 2022 and to where it sits at 14% in 2025. And but you can see that the data is showing over time a nice trend downward, showing the improvements made to data quality in the responses. And just in this last reporting period, you can see the downward trend too, most notably in the households without children's score. This is a 20% drop from here to here. And also similarly with the chronically homeless score, this orange line is an 18% drop. And then the last thing we wanted to point out is in this donut chart. And you can see that there are 43% of the responses that are still showing falling into the other category. And after reviewing the data, many of the responses, the explanations fit into the categories, other categories provided in HMIS. And so we encourage you to continue to review the denials chart in the Community Queue for Housing Agencies, KB, to use the appropriate response for each situation. And I think that will be added to the chat. And then the next goal that we wanted to highlight, which is 14, and that's successfully match households to a housing provider. And this goal is determining the percentage of matches that resulted in an enrollment in a housing project. So the COC threshold is greater than or equal to 60%. But our COC performed at 47%, and that's 2% lower from the last reporting period. So challenges to this are when an enrollment was made, but it wasn't connected to the referral. And so as you're reviewing your client records, please review, make sure that in the enrollments that there is this link icon and in the history tab next to the enrollment if this was a result of an enrollment. If there is not, you can submit a ticket to the help desk to link the enrollment and get that linkage icon. So we'll pause for questions.
I see your hand raised. Would you like to unmute yourself?
If going back one slide, you talked about an improvement in the goal 12, which limiting referrals from 2022, yeah, drastic change. Can you tell me how many projects were represented in rapid rehousing in 2022 versus how many projects are represented now in 2025?
I don't have the numbers right in front of me for 2022, but I can definitely get that information for you. Let me make a note of that and I can follow up in a ticket.
I'm wondering if part of the change has to do with the refining of the number of projects that are in. I know in the family system, we've seen a reduction in the number of rapid rehousing projects, even pulling from CES. So I was just kind of wondering if that contributed or what that looks like. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. We really appreciate it. But Rose, I'll follow up with you. Okay. All right. So the next PPR is transitional housing. Linda?
Hi, so we will be looking at the transitional housing PPR. This is going to be for the reporting period of March 2024 to the end of February 2025. And this slide here shows the per goal percentages for goals 1 through 10. And for our COC, it looks like we are struggling a little bit to meet the thresholds for these goals. Goal 1, which is prioritizing clients experiencing literal homelessness. We also have goal 2, which is decrease the length of stay in temporary shelter or outreach. Goal 7 is to help adults increase their income at project exits. And goal 8 to help client exit into successful housing situations. However, we are doing a great job of consistently meeting the threshold for goals 5, which is to ensure projects are being fully utilized. 6, to help adults increase their income at project enrollment. And goal 10 to ensure that clients do not fall back into homelessness after being housed. And for the next slides, I will be highlighting and outlining some goals that our COC is facing challenges with and also where we are excelling. So for goal one is to prioritize clients experiencing literal homelessness. So for the last reporting period, we scored an average of 77% and an average of 83% before that. So this reporting period, we dropped down to an average of 75%. Based on this chart right here on the right-hand side, it seems like there are a good amount of missing responses. There's 41% to be exact. So we believe that this is an issue of data entry. So it is very important to collect the client's prior living situation in order to determine the client's entry category. And that would help improve the score for this goal. We also have this little flow chart here that can be helpful when it comes to determining whether the client is coming from a place of literal homelessness. So it guides the process by asking the following questions. Where was this client before a project start? And how long did the client start staying in that place? And then it checks off whether the client has stayed in an institution for less than 90 days or in a permanent transitional housing for less than 7 days. And if yes, the process stops. And if no, then the process moves on to the next question. So you can use this chart to help categorize the client's homelessness based on these factors. Last I have goal 10 that I wanted to highlight, and this ensures that clients do not fall back into homelessness after being housed from the project. Last reporting period, we had 3% of clients who exited transitional housing projects. So 3% of those clients returned to the system. For this reporting period, only 1% of clients returned to the system, which still meets the threshold of 10% or less. So I just wanted to highlight this goal because our COC has been consistently achieving this goal, and it just goes to show the effectiveness of our transitional housing projects.
Okay, the quarterly data quality report card. Linda?
Yes. Okay. So the data quality report cards look at universal data elements that are required to be collected for all projects participating in HMIS. This includes name, social security number, date of birth, race, ethnicity, gender. And then we also have universal projects elements such as veteran status, disabling condition, project start, exit, destination, relationship, housing move-in date, and prior living situation. And the report cards look at data completeness, and data completeness refers to the degree to which all required data is known, valid, and documented in HMIS. A data element is considered to have a valid response when it is in accordance with HUD data standards, and it is different than client doesn't know, client refused, and data not collected. It also looks at data accuracy, and data accuracy refers to the degree to which data is entered in HMIS, that it represents real information on the clients that are being served in the project. It also looks at data timeliness, and data timeliness refers to the degree to which the data is collected in HMIS and is available when it is needed. So we will be looking at the previous quarter reporting period, and this is going to be from April 1st to the end of June 2025. So this tab shows the percentage of valid responses and data quality error type for each universal data element for all projects. So it seems like overall we are doing pretty well with an average score of 97% on all data response quality, with the exception of some data elements such as last exit destination, with a 37% of data not collected responses. So this kind of shows that either the last exit destination was skipped over, it wasn't asked, or the client exited without an exit interview, which impacts the score for this data element significantly. So some corrective steps that we could take to ensure that we're meeting this goal is to ensure that data entry is consistent and accurate. And this means that to make sure that the staff that's handling the client record knows the importance of capturing the last exit destination accurately and how to record it. And that can mean internal trainings or trainings that the HMIS team covers. And then also we can improve our client interaction and improve our exit process as well. Also, regular monitoring and audits. Agencies can review data to identify common errors or missing information related to exit destination. So the data timeliness tab of the data quality report cards shows the average number of days taken to enter project start, project exit, and services provided into HMIS for each project. So according to HUD standards, the time frame to enter in client data is 3 days from when the data was collected. So it seems like we are doing a fairly good job with an 88% entering client enrollment data within that threshold. As for services, we are averaging 61%, and then projects exit at 79%. However, we are still seeing some small percentages of data being entered outside of the 3-day threshold, ranging from even 4 days to over 30 days. So it is important to meet the threshold of adding in data that was collected within 3 days of collecting it to improve your data timeliness score. And that's all I have for report cards. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Does anybody have any questions? If you do, feel free to unmute yourself or ask your question in the Q&A. Okay, I'm not seeing anything, so we'll go ahead and move on. The next agenda item is the quarterly COC dashboards. Elizabeth?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. The CEO dashboard contains data from OCHMS and 2-1 Orange County Contact Center. Information on the COC dashboard represents clients who were active in any project type in HMS or contacted the 211 Orange County Contact Center for information and referrals during Q2. This first page is all of our HMS data, so it gives us a snapshot of where all the clients are in the latest enrollment for our OCHMS system. It represents demographic data for those who are served and active in those programs. Clients, and just wanted to note that clients with multiple disabling condition will be counted more than once in the breakdown. And just wanted to note, our team is sharing meeting links in the chat. So if you access the Google Doc, you'll have access to all the reports and articles that we're mentioning in the meeting. Next slide, please, Heather. This is our contact center data page. The second page of the dashboard is reporting on incoming and outgoing calls from the 211 contact center. Callers may receive more than one referral based on their needs. And the top 5 needs for this quarter was housing, food and meals, community support, utility assistant, and legal services. Next slide, please. Callers that call in with housing needs are pre-screened to determine their housing situation, and those who are unhoused are offered support with a linkage to an appropriate access point service provider. Callers are also supported to be relinked and offer a warm handoff to access point as needed.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm going to pause for questions here. If anybody has any questions about the COC dashboard, feel free to unmute yourself or ask your question in the Q&A box. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, so we'll go ahead and move on. The next agenda item is the Goal 5 unit utilization reports. Hannah?
Hi everyone, I'll be going over the Goal 5 unit utilization reports, and these are 2 new reports that have been developed to assist agencies calculate unit utilization for their projects. And these reports are to be used in unison and briefly processed in Excel to capture the final unit utilization percentage. And so to access these reports, on Clarity, you're going to go to Reports and select the Data Analysis tab, and from there, you'll expand the Orange County Clarity reports. And under Project Performance Reports, as you see in the screenshot to the right, you'll be able to find these 2 reports. And so the first one is the Unit Utilization Bed Inventory Report, and this shows the total number of beds available during the reporting period. And then we also have the Unit Utilization Beds Units Provided report, which shows the total number of beds provided to clients during the reporting period. And so I'll just be going over the filters for each of the 2 reports and how to apply your desired reporting period. And so we'll be using the reporting period of June 1st to 30th of this year for our example. And so there's also a screenshot of the filters at the bottom. And so first we'll change the start date is before to the day after the last day of your reporting period. And our last day is June 30th. So we want to set that to is before July 1st in order to include that last day as well. And then for the date filter, we're going to change that to our desired reporting period, which again is June 1st to July 1st. And we're again using that until before logic. And then we're going to select the project types to include in our report from the drop-down list. And we'll also select the project names to include in the report. And we'll change the end date is on or after to the first day of your reporting period, which for our example is June 1st. And then we will click run and download the results as a CSV file. And for the bed and units provided report, we're going to change the reporting period filter using the same reporting period that we used for the bed and units bed inventory report. And then we're going to select the provided the project names from the drop-down list, and we'll also select the project types from the drop-down list. And then lastly, we'll click run and download the results as a CSV file once again. And now I'm going to go over the second part of this process, which is processing the two reports we went over on Excel. So yeah, I will share my screen. And all the steps I'm about to go over can be found on our unit utilization KB. So please feel free to refer to that when working on your reports and finding the unit utilization. And so I've downloaded the two reports that we went over, and they're opened up here side by side. And please note that I've saved the CSV files as Excel files for processing. And I've also highlighted the fields that we'll be working with for this training in yellow. And so first, we're going to be creating the denominator that we need, which is the bed and unit inventory. And we'll do that by working with the bed inventory file. And I'll maximize the screen for that here. And so what we want to do is add these possible bed unit nights to find a total for each project type. And to do that, I'm going to use a pivot table. So I will select all here, go to insert, pivot table. And here I just want to note for the table range, we want to make sure that the range is starting at row 2 because the headers on row 2 here are what we want to use in our pivot table. And we'll place this in a new worksheet and select OK. And on our pivot table, we want to drag full name to rows here. And we'll see all our project names here. And then we also want to drag total possible bed unit nights to values. And here we just want to make sure that we're summarizing our values by the sum, and that's already done here, so we don't need to change anything. And so now we have our list of projects and the total possible bed nights per project displayed. And I'm just going to name this sheet. I will also create a new tab called Goal 5 Score. And for this step, we're gonna need some columns, which you can also find these on the KB. So please feel free to refer to that. And I'll just paste the columns we need here. And so we have our project name, program ID, total bed unit nights provided, total possible bed unit nights, and unit utilization columns here. And so for the project name column, we're going to go back to the pivot table we just created and just copy, paste the project names. And also for the total possible bed unit nights, we're also going to take that from the pivot table that we created. the second column here, paste that. And so yeah, this is going to be our denominator when we calculate the unit utilization at the end. And now we're going to find a program ID for each of these projects. And to do that, we're going to use the XLOOKUP function. So the first part of this function is the lookup value. And so the value that we want to look up is the project name. So I'll select that, insert a comma, and where we want to look it up, our lookup array is going to be in the first tab we looked at, and it's going to be this full name column here. So I'll select that. And then our return array, the value we want our function to return is going to be our program ID. So I will select that. And before we close this function, we're going to lock these references, which I'll do by doing function F4. And then you can see the dollar signs appear in front of the row and column values there. And I'll close the function. And there we get our program ID for our project. And just a quick note, we want to lock these references because we want to make sure that every time we use that function, we want it to just apply to this selected field instead of it moving down or shifting every time we apply it. So I'll apply it to all the other rows like that. So we have our program ID. And now we're going to find a numerator, which is the total bed unit nights provided. And we're going to use another XLOOKUP function for this. And we'll also need the bed unit provided sheet report for that. So I'll bring that up here. And so for this XLOOKUP, the value that we want to look up is going to be our program ID. So I will select that here and then insert a comma. And then we're going to look for the program ID over here in the bed units provided program ID column. So I will select that. And then lastly, we want our function to return the total bed unit nights provided. So I will select this column here. And you can see here that the dollar signs are already there. This reference is already locked, so we don't have to change anything there. And we'll close the function. And we get the total bed unit nights provided for each project. And I'll apply it to every row. And so for our last step, finding the unit utilization percentage, it's going to be a simple division. So we'll just take the numerator that we just found and divide it by the denominator, which is the total possible bed unit nights. And then we'll get the decimal form and then we just want to convert that to a percentage and apply it to all of our rows. And yeah, we have our unit utilization percentage. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. And we want to open this up if anybody has any questions about calculating unit utilization for your projects. As mentioned, the KB is in the chat if you want to reference it and go through the process yourself. And of course, as always, if you run into issues during the process, please submit a help desk ticket to us and we'll be happy to assist. All right.
Thank you, Hannah, for sharing that demo. We have shared the KB into the chat, but we also wanted to highlight that if your agency is running the unit utilization report and checking how your program is doing and it looks not to be accurate or reflecting your agency, there could have been changes to bed inventory. So it's a good time to make sure that your agency's bed inventory is reflected accurately in HMS. So please do use the update bed inventory form as needed when there are changes to bed inventory, as it may fluctuate throughout the year.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, our last agenda item is the agency administrator contract care coordination. Elizabeth?
Thank you, Heather. We wanted to bring this topic up for discussion. There's been requests to our HMS help desk regarding providers who would like to streamline care coordination, and they currently don't have contacts from other partner agencies as they're looking in the HMS enrollment history, either coordinating with coordinator entry or coordination between different programs that the participant is currently actively participating in. So we wanted to ask our agency admins about if you would be interested in having your information, such as your email and work phone, shared with other agency admin for care coordination. So this would mean that we would take the email that is linked to your Clarity account, as well as we would need your support with updating your phone number in the Clarity account. And I have a survey for this for your input, but feel free if you would like to share any feedback or question, feel free to unmute yourself or add your questions to the Q&A.
Would this be for agency to agency communication or for agencies to give participants different contact information that they find in HMIS?
This would be only for agency to agency care coordination. So it would be for agencies to communicate regarding HMS programs, either data, it could be related to data correction or care coordination. And thank you for your question.
So Elizabeth has provided a link to that form, and so please feel free to complete it. We would be appreciative of that. We'll give it another minute. So Elizabeth, the question is, would this be sent out to every agency?
Thank you for that question. As of right now, we wanted to get everyone's input and then reach out to further discuss with agency admins how they would like to have to share contact. It may be shared with all agencies or possibly only when a ticket is submitted and an agency would like to further coordinate with an agency admin. And also wanted to open up for discussion if we weren't to share a list of just agency admin contacts, how would each agency prefer having other partners reaching out to them if they don't have their contact currently? Would they prefer going through the HMS help desk with coordination? Please feel free to share your input.
Hi, this is Lisa with MHA of Orange County.
Afternoon.
So I think it would actually be great because a lot of other agencies don't have my contact information. And sometimes, I get a message on HMIS, and if I'm not paying attention, I don't, honestly check it because I'm really busy, like I'm sure mostly everybody is. So, and if I'm working with a client or a participant, it's helpful to know who exactly they're working with, just to create better care coordination.
I guess my question on that would be, generally the agency administrators are not the people providing services. So I would say that they wouldn't need an agency administrator contact. They would need like who's assigned to the case. So I guess I'm wondering like what the goal of providing the contact information is.
Thank you for that question. We wanted to maybe limit it to agency admin so that agency admin can coordinate and work with the staff and link the correct staff to support with the questions from a partner agency, and having the agency admin support in further reviewing enrollments or data entry just to provide more guidance as well.
Yeah, I think Christine DeLeon from Orange County Housing. I think I'm kind of in the same line with Rose that as an agency administrator, I am not client level. I don't work with the client level. I do the data and the APRs and the administrative side of things. And I would wonder if the types of questions that would be coming to me would be client level. Secondarily, it would be probably problematic for us because we can't share client level information without a release of information from our client specifically. So that might be a problem for us.
For your additional feedback. We'll take your feedback back and also open it up to the rest of the users and get more feedback. We also had a question in the chat. Would it be possible to list the AA contact under the same tab as the care coordination team? Multiple users at the agency can be listed as the care team member. So we'd have to look into seeing if there's an option to kind of identify the role. So thank you for that question. We'll further review and look at the different functionality options that we can look into, and also reach back out to all agencies to collect more information and input from everyone. And thank you, William, for your feedback as well for care coordination with housing. And then Rose and Christine, regarding your feedback on having a share, possibly the assigned staff contact, is that something your agency would be open to if it's that the partner agency could contact the assigned staff versus the AA in cases where they need to coordinate care, such as mostly we see this with coordinated entry, possibly that there's multiple access point working with the client, and there needs to be some support with care coordination or getting reconnected to a participant.
Especially around coordinating matching and things like that. Or if like an agency has a family is working with multiple agencies for different things. I have heard feedback from our team that sometimes the participants remember but don't remember who they're working with, have contact information but can't find it. So we are have had feedback that they would like to connect with other agencies better, but that's for, providing like the care coordination, like you said. That doesn't have anything to do with us in terms of agency administrators, same as Christine. We're more administrative, so we don't, there's, different leadership that provides the direct service support as well as the direct service providers. So, but in that sense, absolutely, I think it would be very beneficial to have those teams be able to connect and coordinate.
Thank you for that feedback. And another option would be there is a contact tab for each profile, and possibly we will bring this back up to the at the user meeting to ask users who are currently working with the participant to add their contact. That's a way for agencies and partners to quickly locate information to provide care coordination. Heather, can I share my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. Give me just a second. I need to get set up over here. Heather, can you confirm you see the training site?
Yes.
Thank you. So another option, instead of pulling contacts from client user profile, is having users who are working or actively working with the participant add contact here. Typically, this is also used for client contact, but there is an option for case managers to include their own information and possibly put a note. They can note that they're currently working with participant with care coordination, housing, navigation, and that's an option for agencies to encourage their staff to put that contact so it helps with care coordination. And once the staff is no longer working with the client, they can go back and set the contact to inactive. That's another option of how we can support with care coordination. As we know, participants may be working with a handful of access point or providers, and this is to help streamline housing matches and moving participants into housing once they get those matches. Just wanted to open up if there's any additional feedback. Well, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your feedback and provide an answer in the survey. I know we're at time, so we'll go ahead and follow up with additional a recap to get more feedback from everyone.
Well, thank you for everyone for joining us. We're just past time. And sorry. And anyway, we really appreciate you joining us. And As always, if you have any specific questions about your agency or specific clients, please submit a ticket to the HMIS Help Desk and we'll be happy to assist. Have a great day today.